Excuse me, how much longer until I'm called? We called you just now. What? Startled by the receptionist's words, I hurried into the examination room, and there was my familiar husband. Why are you here? The blood drained from John's face. In his panic, he tried to kick me out of the room. Immediately after, an unbelievable scene came into my view. My name is Christy Thomas, 27 years old. I was raised as the older of two sisters. I work in corporate office management. 3 years ago, I got married and now live with my husband, John. We met in college, worked at the same part-time job, dated for 4 years, and got married. Even now, we maintain a relationship where we can talk about anything, just like friends. By the way, I'm currently 7 weeks pregnant. We wanted a child right after we got married, but it didn't happen easily. And after 2 years of fertility treatment, a new life is finally growing inside me. When I went to the OB-GYN alone, the gestational sac, which is the baby's growing room, was already visible. And the ultrasound photo even showed the tiny fetus. I haven't told John about the pregnancy yet. I wanted to surprise him. On the way back from the OB-GYN, I bought a cake and stopped at a supermarket to get ingredients for his favorite food. When I got home, I started cooking right away. A few hours later, John, who came home saying, "I'm home," widened his eyes when he saw the food on the table. "Wow, it's so luxurious today. There's even my favorite, beef stew." That's right. I thought we should have a party today. Huh? A party? Why all of a sudden? Actually, I went to the hospital today. Hospital? I handed the ultrasound photo I took out of my bag to John, who was looking anxious. Looking at it, he raised his face forcefully and stared at me. "Christy, is this... really? John, we're becoming parents. Really? We're going to be parents?" "Yes, it's true. Our baby has finally come to us." I'm just so surprised. I'm lost for words. I know, it doesn't feel real, does it? But it's true. Our baby is really growing inside me. Growing steadily. Oh my God. Everything seems to be growing fine. Together, John, we're finally becoming parents. With every word I say, the reality of it slowly sinks in. Tears start flowing from my eyes, and before I know it, I can't stop them. John must be really happy too. He hugs me tight, his eyes also brimming with tears. Over and over again, he says, "Thank you," with a grateful smile on his face. Ever since that day, John has been taking on even more of the household chores than before. We used to share the housework, but now he's taken over cleaning the bathroom because it's too dangerous for me. He's also been proactive about grocery shopping for heavy items like rice and water. But that's not all. In order to reduce my burden even a little bit, he started making appointments for my prenatal checkups on his own. He's been asking about my schedule and making my checkup appointments for me, since I'm not so good with using the internet. I've been experiencing mild morning sickness, but not enough to keep me bedridden, so I've continued to work as usual. When I get home, I make dinner and wait for John to come back. He's been working overtime a lot since about a year ago, and usually doesn't get home until after 9 p.m. This night, though, he didn't come home even when it was past 10 p.m. Whenever it gets past 9 p.m., he always calls, but tonight, there's no word from him. I try reaching out to him, but there's no response, so I wait for him anxiously. Then, Just past 11 p.m., I hear the sound of the front door opening. I rushed over to greet him. "John, welcome home! I was worried because you didn't contact me." Sorry. Something came up. But you weren't supposed to have overtime today, right? Did something happen? No. Just got some unexpected work. His eyes are clearly avoiding mine. Something seems off about how he's speaking. An uneasy premonition gripped me, and I confronted him right away. "John, are you hiding something?" What are you talking about? I'm not hiding anything." "Then why won't you look me in the eye? If you have nothing to hide, you should be able to tell me where you were and what you were doing, right?" I told you. I got caught up with an unexpected job. Some screw-up by a junior. I had to step in and handle it. But even if that was the case, couldn't you have sent me a message like you usually do? I texted you several times. I even called you, didn't I? Well, it couldn't be helped. I was busy. I didn't have time to answer your calls. John, who was usually so composed, raised his voice and glared at me. This was the first time I had ever seen him like this, and it startled me. He continued ranting, panting, and out of breath. "After all I do, working late and then coming home to be doubted? What nerve. Is it fun for you, making a fool out of people like this?" What are you talking about? I'm not making a fool out of you. I'm just asking why you were late. I said it was because of overtime, didn't I? What more do you want? It's not about what I want or don't want. You didn't contact me like you usually do. That's why I thought it was strange. Oh, enough. You're being so stubborn. Is it because you're pregnant that you're having these intense delusions? What? Listen, Christy, when the time comes for you to give birth, you won't be able to work. And then who do you think is going to support us? Me, right? If you want to be supported, stop interfering in my work. John then left, throwing off his suit and going straight into the bath, after which he shut himself in our bedroom. What was left in the living room was the untouched dinner I had prepared. In front of the untouched side dishes, I was overwhelmed by indescribable emotions. Why? Why would he say things like that? All I did was point out that something felt off. To call it delusions? That's too harsh. Since that day, John began treating me coldly. It became normal for him to come home in the early hours of the morning, and the days when he would come home by 9 p.m., as he used to, became rare. In the midst of all this uncertainty, my pregnancy continued. John, who used to help out with anything and everything, no longer did any household chores, leaving it all to me. The strain of doing the housework while being careful not to exert too much force on my stomach gradually wore me down. Finally, unable to handle everything alone, I called my younger sister Karen. "Hey, Karen. Oh, sis! Long time no see. What's up?" "Well, I had a bit of a spat with John." "Oh, really? You two are just like the saying, the more you argue, the better you get along, huh?" Karen, my sister, who's 3 years younger than me, is working in the fashion industry. We've always been referred to as two peas in a pod, and we're very close. During my dating days with John, she was my go-to for advice. She's an irreplaceable part of my life. That day, too, she listened to me for almost an hour before I ended the call. Opening up to her helped me feel a bit better. I was in the 17th week of my pregnancy, and my belly was starting to show. Entering the stable period, I felt fine, so I headed to work as usual. After my lunch break, just as I was about to start my afternoon tasks, something happened. I felt a sudden, unfamiliar twinge in my belly. What was that? The pain seemed to linger. In that moment, I thought about the safety of my child. Feeling anxious, I left work early and rushed to the women's clinic I usually visit. Normally, John would make an appointment for me, but today was unexpected, and I didn't have one. It looked like I'd have to wait a while for a checkup, but the thought of going home like this filled me with anxiety. Ready for a long wait, I explained the situation to the reception staff. "Excuse me, I'm Christy Thomas, and I've been having some mild abdominal pain for a while." "Thomas, please, wait a moment." I didn't have an appointment because it was unexpected today." "Oh, here you are." "Huh? You're Christy Thomas, right? 17 weeks pregnant? We have an appointment for you. Please, wait over there." Okay." As instructed, I took a seat on the waiting room sofa. I took out my planner from my bag to check, but there was no appointment scheduled for today. Since that incident, things have been awkward between John and me, but he's still been making my medical appointments as usual. That said, my next appointment isn't until later. It's definitely not today. Feeling somewhat uneasy, I decided to just wait until they called me. About an hour passed when I was hit by the stomachache again. I stood up and headed to the restroom. And yet, my turn still hadn't come. Even for a busy clinic, I should have been called by now. Could it be that I didn't really have an appointment? I went back to the reception desk and asked a different staff member. "Excuse me, do you know how much longer it will be until I'm called? May I have your name, please?" "It's Thomas. Christy Thomas. I've been waiting for over an hour." "Thomas. Oh. Is there a problem?" "Well, you were called just now." "What? You should have been called into consultation room number 3. I thanked the staff and quickly headed to the consultation room. A sign on the door of room number 3 read, "In consultation." In consultation? I was supposed to be called, so why? Could someone else have mistakenly entered? In a split second, I knocked on the door of consultation room number 3. A nurse opened the door and asked, "Can I help you?" I'm Christy Thomas. I had to use the restroom earlier, and..." "Christy Thomas?" "The receptionist said I was already called, but the sign said in consultation, so I thought maybe someone else had gone in." "Wait, you're Christy Thomas? But she's already inside." "What?" No matter how I thought about it, something was off. Convinced of this, I pushed past the nurse and forced my way into the examination room. That's when it happened. An unbelievable sight met my eyes. "Why are you here?" There, in the room, was none other than my husband, John. The moment he saw me, he started speaking in a flustered manner. Christy, what are you doing here?" "That's what I was going to ask. Why are you here?" Could it be, John? Did you make the appointment under my name? But why?" "Just get out for now." John tried to forcefully push me out of the room. However, given this obviously strange situation, I couldn't just back down. "John, explain this to me. Why are you here right now?" I'll explain later. So, for now, I want an explanation now. You can't expect me to just accept this, can you? I'm begging you. Just leave for now." While I was arguing with John, the doctor, probably returning from an internal exam, came back, looking puzzled. "Wait, Christy, huh?" Seeing me, the doctor's eyes widened. Doctor, I just got here. Huh? Then who did I just examine? Just as he said that, the door to the exam room opened. Coming out of the room was none other than my sister, Karen. Oh, Karen? I had absolutely no idea what was going on anymore. Why is Karen here? Well... My frustration grew at Karen's hesitations. I confronted her. Why is the appointment under my name? And why did you come out of the examination room? Then the doctor, who had been listening, opened his mouth. Mrs. Thomas, I apologize for not realizing it was not you. She was wearing a mask, so I couldn't tell. But I thought it was strange. You're supposed to be 17 weeks pregnant, but the baby was too small. It was no wonder the doctor didn't realize. My sister and I look so much alike, and she was wearing a mask. Doctor, the person you just examined is my sister, and that man there is my husband. What? So, you mean the father of the baby I just examined is... The doctor's sharp gaze locked onto John. I could see the color draining from his face. And at that moment, I finally understood everything. John? Karen? I need an explanation. From the beginning. Whether they had given up or not, they slowly started to speak. According to them, they had been in a relationship for about a year. While I was struggling to get pregnant and undergoing fertility treatments, they claimed temptation got the better of them. Then, my pregnancy was confirmed. At first, they were purely happy, but shortly after, Karen's pregnancy was also confirmed. Karen asked John to accompany her to the hospital because she was scared, and John, in his usual carelessness, mistakenly booked the appointment under my account. He noticed this just before we arrived at the hospital, panicked, pretended to forget the insurance card, and completed the check-in. While I was in the restroom, the staff at the front desk's shift changed. As soon as they called the name for the appointment, Karen must have slipped into the examination room without running into me. The doctor initially didn't realize it was Karen, since she was wearing a mask. But of course, during the examination, it became clear she wasn't me. And as the doctor was wondering about this, the real Christy arrived at the examination room. After that, I regained my composure and had my own checkup. The abdominal pain was diagnosed as transient, and there was no problem with my baby. I took my husband and sister and headed straight for our parents' house. I also contacted John's parents and asked them to come to the house. Once everyone was gathered, I explained to them the whole situation. Of course you're going to take responsibility, right? I asked. Stammering, my husband responded, Responsibility? Of course! I will continue to be with you, Christy. Huh? What are you talking about? We're obviously getting a divorce. But you just mentioned responsibility. The responsibility I'm talking about is alimony. I'm going to make sure you pay, both you and Karen, for what you've done. What? Wait a minute! I never intended to get a divorce. My husband's words sparked anger in my sister, who was standing nearby. What? You said you loved me more! Was that all a lie? Karen grabbed my husband's collar, and they started to argue. Their noisy squabble pushed my anger to its peak. I splashed the tea from the table on both of them, raising my voice as much as possible. Enough is enough! I don't care about your opinions. I'm divorcing John, and I'm cutting ties with Karen. You two just need to pay the alimony. Quietly! Wait, Christy. The one I love is you. Sis? I'm your sister, aren't I? Don't talk about alimony. Shut up! Both of you only say things that suit your purposes. How far do you plan to ridicule me? I will collect the alimony by any means necessary. If it means sending you two to hell, I'll do whatever it takes. If you get it, get out of my sight, you scumbag. At that, both of them began to prostrate themselves in front of me. Please forgive me, Christy. I beg you. Sis, I also beg you. It's too late for their repentance. What they did is unforgivable, and I have absolutely no intention of forgiving them. After that, my husband and I divorced, as expected. I blocked Karen's contact information and cut off all ties with them completely. They were disowned by their families and had to start living on their own. But John's affair was spread to his workplace through his parents, and because of that, he started receiving cold stares from his colleagues. Unable to bear the atmosphere, he continued to be absent from work without notice, and was eventually fired. Karen, on the other hand, was suffering from severe morning sickness, and had already quit her job. Now jobless, whenever they faced each other, they cursed at each other, and led a miserable life. They began living together, but they hadn't gotten married. I think they won't support each other as a married couple in the future. As for me, I moved back to my parents' house and am now leading a pregnant life. I switched my job to remote work and am anxiously waiting for the birth of my child. I might make my child suffer because there's no father. Even so, I intend to love this child with all my heart in my own way.